we are immersive on Onyx University's campus, and Aaron is our filming. That's our camera. So Aaron, say hello. They know you're
Hello.
there.
Hello. I'm filming today. This is our first time going live in the actual Onyx University campus. So I'm filming today.
Yes, this is the beautiful part of Web 3.0, that nothing is defined absolute, and we're all playing here, figuring it out. And we have with us a guest, Eduardo Nunez, who is going to be taking us through his efforts with RPG and learning. So, Eduardo, please let us know a little bit about you. Just start off and introduce yourself as well as your business and your project you're working on.
Thank you. So basically, I started this project because, um, as many of you out there probably have the same feeling that we could do much more with education that we're doing right now. We currently, in technologically, we are much more of assets in terms of software. Everything is cheaper, everything is easier to use. So we're talking about a moment which I don't think we could stand and just watch. And that's how the project started. We started thinking of how we could do games as a way of people understanding, visualizing, interacting, and breaking away from physical barriers to reach different capacity to understand. So basically, the pandemic brought a lot of pain and a lot of struggles to a lot of people. But one thing that showed us is that the current state of education, it doesn't help motivating students. It doesn't help engage them. It doesn't help them feel focused or immersed into something that they feel like it's going to be their future. And so at the learning environment and the learning experience, and it's something that we need to get back. We have this awesome generation which is completely digital, which doesn't just live in the physical world. It has a personality, an online personality, an online person, online friends, online places, social life, complete social life, and why not a complete learning life as well. That's where I think where we're headed. We started with adventure and RPG games, especially because in K-12 education, there's always that sense of exploration and feeling of mystery and emotion that students love, and we thought we should bring that to games and to learning. So we sometimes tend to feel like we should separate emotion from learning. That's not true. What drives us, what completely drives us to push forward, to explore more, to try to figure out something in particular, it's our emotions, our need to feel like what we're doing, not just an exercise sheet, is just not just trying to get the answer right, but also to make it mean something. And so we started that way, and we started with single player, but we're currently expanding the project a lot, and we're already touching base with multiplayer capacity, just as we are right now, giving the chance for teachers and for students to be able to have online classrooms, not only in the virtual space, but with mathematical and scientific mechanisms and characters that allow them to feel the learning process. We actually have great news about that, because we just got accepted into the AWS Head Start program, which will basically bring to
Eduardo, we lost your audio for a bit. So this last two sentences, could you repeat for us? Sorry.
which I think you celebrated the AWS at start.
Yes.
But yeah, so
Yes,
that
I heard
it's
that.
not much more than that. Yeah, they reached an agreement with us in which we will be able to develop multiplayer and also metaverse capacities through them. With a technical team on their end, so it's something we're looking forward to, and
More
that's
recent
where
ones,
we're
yeah.
at right now.
So during the pandemic, you really identified a problem, specifically with education and immersion and engagement. And you're using the RPG or the gaming to help that move more into that immersive, engaged learning. Is your background then in gaming? Is that the field you're coming from?
It is one of the fields, yeah. I have an extensive background in management, but I also have at least twice the number of years in experience in gaming and also in programming. And at the same time, I managed projects related to gamification for the last 6 years. So all in all, we're talking about a little bit of experience that allowed us to bring this the
The audio is going out on you, Eduardo. I don't know if it's our connection, but it just keeps going. You know, we love technology.
What about now?
Okay, perfect.
Can you hear
Now
me
I
better?
can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying is that everyone on the team has an extensive gaming experience as well, and in terms of immersion, we also have a very clear understanding of where we want to go. So we want to push the barriers further in terms of realism and also immersion. So what I mean by that is that we take, for example, world building very seriously. Which means that when we build something, we build it from scratch and with everything connected. For example, if we go to a forest and it's supposed to represent a forest inside a specific geographic climate, we are going to represent a fauna that has trees, has bushes, has food from that location and not somewhere else. And that we take that to the extreme. So we're talking about thousands of little details, hundreds of thousands of little details, which help the student feel immersed in the learning process. I know it might not seem like a direct connection, but it's something that as a student and also as an underage student, we're talking about something that they feel very well. For them, fantasy worlds or just what like when we're in right now, it's something that for them it's not broken. It will take them to an extreme level of motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can tell the difference between just seeing like a short sitcom that has, stages versus something like Avatar, right? Where it's very, very detailed to bring that world alive. So you're just not putting the structure there, you're bringing that immersion by all those details, really brings it alive. Yes, I definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we want to see what you do. So if you could take us on adventure, the screen behind you can show us a little bit into your world, into what this looks like. And then I do have some questions afterwards, but I'd like to see where you're coming from. So we're going to turn around and kind of check out this video that we have here. Will you just introduce to us what we're going to see and then take us through it?
All right. So first of all, apologies because the game is in Portuguese. Uh, it's something that right now, but let me just try. I'm trying to move the game, the cursor to the game. Just give me a second.
You bet.
Okay, yeah, okay. Basically, what we did was that we created a different. This is actually a bit similar to your character creator. Um, so what I'm trying, just this is just a character creator, but what I'm trying to do is that we're created this place, this location, which is completely fictional, and it's called Liberdomus, and we. I just skipped a video which shows a little bit of the background because it's a bit long, but as you can see, it's just a regular 3D environment. The thing is that all of the things that we did is to make sure that there's a connection between the story and the 3D environment. So basically, as I said, it's in Portuguese, so it's normal that you probably won't understand a lot of what's happening. But if you play any old RPG, you're familiar with the equipment tab, with the storage tab, with the stats, with the minimap, and also with the quests, which I don't have any right now, and even conquests or achievements. And basically, what happens and the fast consumption items, the minimap here, and the level and the portrait. So this is just a regular RPG in which movement is completely free. It's an open world, and right now we're at the home of the player, and the player has to move around the house and discover a little bit the location and also interact with the character. So you can interact with this person, which is the father, and has a lot of dialogue options. So basically, this is just like a regular RPG. There's absolutely nothing different from this compared to what we're used to play in other games. The main difference is that we don't stop here. So there's plenty more apart from this. So this is just the house, right? If we just finish the quest here, let me just go up the stairs because I have to grab something there. I forgot. And we this is just a tutorial quest. But after this, then the mathematics and science quests start. So this is a game for sixth grade, mathematics and science, and so it's specific for that audience. And there's no content apart from that in terms of what this is in terms of single player mathematics and science game. So there's the quest. Let me just grab.
So they're navigating this world, and as they go through this world, they're playing like they would any
Any
RPG
other RPG,
quest.
exactly.
But the information is educational, so they'll be solving problems that actually educate them on science and math and those kind of things. Awesome.
Exactly. So basically,
what's an example? I'm sorry. What's an example of something that they would solve?
Okay. That's why I brought this a few videos as well. Let me just share a bit with you. Because for me to reach that part of the game, it still takes a little bit long, so might as well just show you the video. For example, this is just it's shown here. There's always a story behind. So in this case, eventually, as the player progresses, they try to find what we think it's the bad guys. So there's always the bad guys in the story, and in this case, they destroy the part of the city, and the player chases them. And then when the player chases them, they once again escape, and a fire ensues and destroys another part of the city. And so the player wakes up to find that a whole block of buildings is destroyed. And so what happens next is that there's a dialogue explaining everything that happened. So as you can see here, you can already see the massiveness of the environment. We're talking about what would be the equivalent of Manhattan in terms of dimension of the game. And this is just a small part. So there's a dialogue explaining what is happening, and so basically the player is getting informed that there's 200 families that don't have a home right now, and they need to sort everyone in buildings that can be built really quick, with a limited budget and with a limited space as well. So in this case, this is a volumetric game. So basically, the player has to build, it has to choose the 3D block that they want to use as a blueprint for the construction, and select the number of floors and the width of the base. And so basically with that they have the volume, and they have to calculate. It's basically a mathematical problem in which they have to calculate in how much square footage they need, how much budget are they spending. They are families below budget and below the available square footage, and so this is just a typical mathematical problem. What we intend to do is we intend to, because this is what we call instantiation. So basically we allow the player to instantiate, I think that's how we say it, an object into the game world. So basically when they do that, and when they click and build, instead of showing, for example, this pyramid, it will show a building with the architectural type of the buildings around them with a pyramidic form. If they choose a cylinder, it will look like a tower, and so on. And the player has to choose number of buildings and how many floors each one has, and determine if that's enough to build, and if not, they will need to start again. So this is an example of the subject that we use for specifically for mathematics and specifically for geometry and measure, which is a key part and a very difficult part of the curriculum for mathematics, and also a key part of the essential learning objectives. Another one that I can show you real quick, it's what we call the potion game. And in this case, the player has to select liquids from different bottles and mix them. Just another example, and in this case, what we
Sorry, Eduardo, connection
to do
again
is
with
that-
audio. Too long. It was too long. I couldn't understand you. Too many audio errors. So just 1 second,
okay.
and then we'll go again. Okay.
Where did I lost you?
As soon as you started describing this aspect of it. So just start with this screen again, and because I can hear you now. So let's just kind of back up again, just because it gets too much. I couldn't understand. Go ahead.
All right. So basically, this is the potion game, and this is used for We're currently using it for fractions. So basically, in each bottle, there's an amount of liquid, and the player has to remove a fraction of that liquid, and therefore has to do calculations regarding multiplication, division of fractions, and then place it into the bottle in the middle of the screen. And this can be used as well for chemistry, and it will be used for chemistry, and we're going to use it also for science. So basically, this is a very an interesting example of a flexible mechanism that we have, in which we can use bottles and pour liquid from or remove parts of what's inside the bottle and mix it into another and observe the respective reaction. And we can also use this as an example of a mechanism that can be used by teachers on a multiplayer scale, in which each player has to complete a certain amount of questions to get a right answer or to get a specific score easily used for evaluation of this specific subject. So it's a very simple one. We actually have video is a little bit old, but the animations are much better now. But as you can see, he removes a certain amount of liquid, and the same amount of liquid appears in the middle of in the bottle in the middle. So that's a specific one. One thing that I would like to mention is that one of the things that sometimes the online multiplayer environments lack in terms of education, it's connection with a humanized dialogue and connection. So basically, what happens is that sometimes when you play an online environment and you finish a test, for example, you get the score, and that's it. We always try to input negative and positive feedback, but always with a positive outcome. So even if the player fails, they're tempted to try again. And we also use dialogue to help the student and to encourage the student to try different approaches or to try different aspects. So more than just the mechanisms, we also try to use the story, the characters, and the environment itself in terms of narrative to encourage the player and to motivate the player, taking advantage of the immersion and allowing them to try again and to feel like they can try again without having to experience a negative or even neutral feedback, which sometimes is almost as bad as negative. Because when, for example, when you have a young student and the student's not very confident of their own skills and they don't have any kind of feedback, sometimes this is bad because this gives space for the student to start questioning himself, to tell himself he's not good enough. And when we use characters and the character replaces that emptiness and says, look, didn't go well, let's try again. I'm sure you can do it. Let's try it this way. Try to think about it in a different approach. Here's some help. Let's try again. That fills the emptiness of no feedback in a human way. And that helps the student feel motivated and not feel like they are being judged even by themselves. I'd like to show another game. See if I can find one.
So this is self-directed, and the characters are prompted in a series of actions. So if they don't succeed, they're coming back with a response that's supportive and engaging and saying, "Hey, come play some more." But it's not like this isn't live. It is individual to begin with. You said you were doing multiplayer as well.
Yeah.
So is that just so that there's more than one student in the room at a time, and it could be an instructor live as well?
Yeah, that's the idea. So basically, what happens is that we already built tons of environments. What you can see here, for example, it's a completely different environment of what I showed you before. We also have, for example, right here very quickly. I think it's interesting to show you now.
Okay.
For example, here you can see a forest environment. Basically, something completely different. So in this case, what we did this for the single player mode, but we also wanted to do it because it feels like a place where a student can meet with a teacher or with different students and do a bunch of exercises related to science or mathematics. So I just had to drink a little bit of water, and
Of course.
so basically, that's the idea, that not only there's the environment itself, and in this case we can build, and we have been building a lot of different environments, but these are environments that allow the student to connect with the subjects, different species of mushrooms, and how they connect with preserve the forest, because that's a part of the science curriculum for the 6th grade as well. And so, for example, in this forest, there's a few invasive species, and the player has to identify them and remove them from the forest. And they can do that individually through the quests that we use, or they can start the environment with the teacher, and the teacher can then use the environment and the mechanisms that we create to show them what happens. Like, for example, if they can instantiate a tree and then feed it with water and sunlight and all of that, and show the students what happens as the tree grows, because it's fed water and sunlight. What happens if we cut out the water and the tree starts to die, or if we cut out sunlight and the tree withers, etc. So basically, that's the sort of environment that we want. We don't want just a beautiful environment in which the player can meet, the student can meet with the teacher, but also an environment in which the teacher can and the player can interact with in dozens of different ways. In this case, all that limits our capacity to implement this, it's time. We can do anything that we want. We can do, we can place animals inside the forest and see how they interact with the objects. Like, for example, if we place insects, we can see them, like, for example, bees, and we can see that they basically navigate to the flowers, and they then pollinate, and I think I'm using the right word, pollinate.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see that the forest starts to change with the presence of bees, birds, and all of that. And so that kind of mechanism, what we call mechanism, that this kind of interaction is what we really want in 3D, and that kind of and that's something that we really want to do. Yeah, that's definitely our future. But right now what we're doing is the same thing, but just for the individual student.
Okay, so let me try to understand this perspective. So definitely it could be self-directed, but it also can be collective with a group or a teacher or a mentor or something like that. Is this on the PC only? Is this virtually accessible with a headset? Is this augmented? Tell me a little bit about the dynamics of the platform.
So we're a very small team, and that's the main reason why we haven't started with headsets yet. That, and obviously the fact that at least in Portugal, schools don't exactly have budget for us to even test the experience itself. But it is something that all of the scenarios that we're doing are already planned for that. So when we introduce the headset, it's something that ideally it will take us a very short amount of time for us to implement that. And there's a PC and a tablet version, Android and iOS version. So basically, we want it in mobile as well, because a lot of students here in Portugal also use the tablet to study. And right now we wanted that. We're thinking, one of the things that we're working with AWS, and this was awesome news for us, is that we will be able to do what they call streaming of, I don't know how you say it. It's live streaming of the game itself. So basically, instead of having to install the game in your computer, you go to a platform and you play the game there, and then the save file and everything that you did is stored into a database, so it doesn't get lost. And if you use a different computer, or if you use a tablet or whatever you want, you just play it as if you were playing it in your computer. As long as the internet is fast enough, it's an awesome solution, because that allows us to build more interesting environments, but also heavier for the computer, because we're not using the resources from the computer of the client, but instead we're using resources from the server. And so we're using a lot of much better quality resources and much better quality environments.
Yeah, I can see how that can really help if you're in the classroom and then for whatever reason you go home, you can log in, you can do it on your phone, but it's stable because it's on some other cloud, right? Not on the. That's wonderful, wonderful. Now, I'm interested in how you got the curriculum into the gamification. So, are you working with a team of designers, or are you working with educators? What's your partnership in taking the content and making it actually a part of the game?
Okay, so that's an awesome question, and that's curiously not one that a lot of people do ask, and it's probably the question which I feel more proud to answer, because it's something that goes behind the scenes. It's something that not a lot of people see. Like, there's a lot of difference between having an online space in which the students can learn and interact, but with limited ability to transport that to curriculum and to real life learning. And in this case, what we're doing is we started from there. So we have a team of a game designer, which is me, and I have also an instructional designer, which is someone that's specialized in grabbing the contents from the curriculum into the game itself. And also we're working with a research team from the Polytechnic Institute of Oporto here in Portugal, and they have an awesome team of teachers. Those are expert teachers that teach other teachers how to be teachers, and they've helped us build a framework, which it already produced, if I'm not mistaken, 5 different scientific articles, because how different it is from the usual. I can even share it with you, because it is something that we're really, really proud of. So this is a massive work, which I'm showing you right now. So basically, what we did is that for each moment of each quest, we specified which game mechanism we're going to use, which are the winning conditions, how long it's expected to last, so that we make sure that it doesn't last too long, the specific learning objectives of each quest. So basically, this connects with the curriculum, the specific curricular essential learning goals for each moment. Also, the chapters of the validated school manuals, and also the taxonomies of learning. So, what is
Wow.
the purpose of building a metaverse of education if we're not taking advantage of it? If we're just focusing on remembering, for example, we always should focus on higher level thinking skills, right? And so, yeah, that's something that we're really proud of, being able to make sure that every quest that we do goes through different taxonomies and gives a different experience. So basically, the student goes through different learning objectives, through different taxonomies, and even through different assessment procedures, to make sure that they have a complete experience and a complete understanding of the subject, and not just something that they remember right now, but 6 months from now they won't, because it's something that it's not going to be of use for them. So this is something that we're talking about. A game at Liberdomus itself, it's only 33% built right now. We're about to launch a version which is going to expand it to 45%. And so right now it's 81 pages of quests, which is massive. But yeah, this is something that we're really proud of, and it's been a massive work from teachers, because it implied that they had to understand how to game, how to play, and how the game interacts and how the mechanisms interact with the student, to make sure that everything was completely understood. And on our end as well, it was something that we even see here in this environment, and this is something that makes me really excited about this environment in which we are at right now, because what we can do is that we can configure the space, and we can use the space with different technology. With I mean, I'm streaming my screen into a screen inside a virtual world. This is awesome, and this kind of mechanism makes sense, and that's something that we adapt the environment to something that educationally makes sense. So we wanted something that we had to strike a balance, which was harder in the beginning. Now it's getting easier, but a balance between education and fun. And
Yes.
so that's something that we take into consideration, and we make sure that the educational part is there.
I love that you've gone to that extra. This is really a lot of extra work to make sure that the quality is there. That, like you said, this is not just it's not just aesthetically pleasing and enjoyable, but there's meat on those
Yeah.
bones, right? There's a lot of context, and you've been collaborating with other educators. So you're working with experts in bringing it direct to the learner. So that's amazing. That's really good.
Well, one thing that I would like to mention is that we're looking at the US as well, for educators that would love to work with us, because we already have this baseline, we already have this framework, so it's not working from scratch on this. It's something that if educators are listening and they like to play games, they like how the games can interact and can move someone in terms of motivation, in terms of engagement, they understand that. And if they want to be a part of something like this, they can contact us, and we'll start working together.
Yeah, we'll definitely offer up your contact information to the company and how to get in touch with you. Because again, the great thing about our space is that we're all collaborating, we're not competing, and everybody's finding their spaces of where they can contribute value. So this is, I mean, you have a wonderful advancement. You have definitely put in a lot of work. So educators that are from all aspects. So we've talked to people that teach geography, that teach all kinds of different subjects can be implemented.
Go to the characters and interact with them in a human way, and understand their motivations. Like it's not just a battle between numbers, like 20,000 soldiers on one side and 10,000 soldiers on the other. You go to the commander and you go to the foot soldier and you talk with them, and they tell you, I hope I went today, I want to go back to my family, and you can really understand the human motivations and fears and everything behind what a person is feeling at that moment. And that's something that can make students immersed into the not only the story, the history, but also stories. Like for example, in literature, I mean, we can go and build worlds that are representative of books, of entire books, and from there we can do awesome things. Like instead of just reading, the player can live the story, and that's something that's completely different, and it's a journey that I really look forward to doing.
Yeah, so when it comes to the curriculum too, are you looking to go to the extremes, or I guess it's not an extreme, it's just the next step as far as accreditations and working with different institutions so that as they go through these learning opportunities, are they getting some kind of badges, micro credentials? Does it
Yeah,
fit
for
into,
sure.
yeah, so
Yeah,
talk
for
a
sure.
little bit about
I mean, yeah, that's probably the hardest of everything. I mean, we're talking about building technology from a perspective that, I mean, 20 years ago, we wouldn't imagine that we'd be doing. But curiously enough, basic e-learning tools, which have just basically the ability of showing pictures and text and videos, like really, really boring videos. Those tools are credited to for students to, if they complete the tasks, if they complete the tests, they have accreditation. But when we talk about an online base, and you talk about an adventures game, which has, as you can see behind me, which has the whole curriculum, you don't see any kind of openness to accreditation here in Portugal, for example. We're talking about a really long journey for us to ever be placed on the same level of a school manual, and we're talking about something that can produce much better outcomes than a regular school manual. And so we're definitely working on that already. We're already showing this to not only teachers, but also experts, and also people that are in management positions and in leadership positions in terms of education, both here in Portugal and other countries as well, because we can definitely see that. I mean, micro credentials is even easier because we're not talking about a whole curriculum, a massive curriculum like this one, which has what we expect, about 300 pages worth of adventures, but it's something that we can narrow down and build games and build experiences for each person, much more tailored, and at the same time easier for us to identify all of the educational needs that they go through and how we should assess them, and how and at the end of that assessment, which is incredibly easy in the game to do an assessment.
Right. Did you
just
get
have
to
to
the
go.
end or not?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it doesn't get easier than that.
I love that it's so applicable and not just
everything that we
theory.
do inside the game Yeah, exactly. And micro credentials is probably the next step. We're probably going to be able to do that before we get a full uh, acceptance of an entire school curriculum. But yeah, through this, I mean, with VR, especially if you introduce VR into this, we're talking about the ability of doing accreditation of hundreds, if not thousands, of different degrees and specializations and any kind of learning courses that the student wants to do without any limitation because they're thousands of kilometers away, or if they have any sort of physical limitation or anything, even prices, if, even the expenses of having to move somewhere and to live there, that doesn't have to exist. And that's something that's awesome.
Yes, and then just from my perspective, asking the question, let's talk in terms of decentralization, blockchain with the micro credentials that way, and being outside of an institution where these students now have trackability of their accomplishments. What's your thoughts on that direction?
I mean, that's even better because we're talking about something that it's long desired by anyone that knows that a virtual world is something that needs to be protected. That needs to there needs to be accountability, and there needs to be protection of what a player does inside that virtual space that belongs to him or her. And that's something that we're definitely going to do. Like, for example, imagine inside Liberdomos or inside a multiplayer environment similar to what we're building, in which there's an art class, or let's get even more serious. Imagine a situation in which a teacher is doing chemistry reactions with the students, and you have a game, a virtual world in which every chemical reaction is determined, and there's it's visual and it's interactive, and the student starts to experiment with that and comes up with a specific formula. All of that needs to be protected. All of that needs to be put into a decentralized chain of protection, of accountability, so that the student is forever has forever ownership of what they did, not just a painting, but anything that they want to do in that. Because when we're talking about virtual worlds in which you can introduce any kind of mechanism, that means you can manipulate that environment in any way you can, as long as it's physically possible. Or even physically impossible, it's doable inside the virtual world, and that means that there's probably a lot of things that are going to be discovered or experimented on. I mean, blueprints, diagrams, even stuff that you can probably patent. You can do it inside the virtual world, and from the first moment you're able to do that, you need to protect that world, and you need to protect ownership and rights from the person that's producing that.
I love that. The creator is the owner from the get-go. The inventor is the owner from the get-go. And it's all documented on the blockchain so that they can take it in and out of the worlds that they even created on. So you're definitely thinking of the big world, meaning the big picture. But I want to kind of go back to now your world building, because ultimately it's like you're artist building out universes and worlds and all of this. Tell us a little bit behind the scenes on that. Are you using like Unity? Are these artists? Are these more programmers and coders? Tell me a little bit about the world building.
So it definitely it takes a lot of coding. Yes, for sure. We're using Unity, and we're using 3D artists as well. and we're using game design and world building aspects and storytelling. So basically, and
Wow.
audio design as well. So we're talking about a very specific set of skills which go into world building. So basically, when we're talking about world building, we're talking about not only the physical aspects of it, but a lot of work behind, which involves not only the traditional game design document, but a massive massive number of documents, additional documents, which basically altogether they are. Just to give you a perspective, we're talking about probably at the end of Liberdomos, we're going to write a book, which is already written. So just
Yeah.
basically adapt it to a structured book. So basically, we started with the backstory, and we go from the universe to the location.
Mm.
So imagine that you want the player to be somewhere to do something. Like, for example, the construction game. Okay, we want the player to be able to construct buildings based on geometric shapes. So we take it from the educational perspective always, because that's the main point of it, and we want that, and we want a ton of other things. So we start thinking, okay, we need to accommodate this, and how large does it need to be? And so we came up to the conclusion of 3 continents. From there, we started thinking, okay, we have 3 continents. What's the story behind those? Why are those continents full of forests and mountains? Does it have a desert? Does it have a swamp? Does it have different people? Does it have a different culture? Does it have volcanoes? Does it have a dragon in the middle of the sea? And yes or no, and why? So obviously, as we're talking about something that it's completely the product of imagination, and when we're talking about virtual worlds, the limit is literally your imagination.
Yes.
Then anything goes, and that means that we can build what we need. And so we started looking. Okay, so now we have the continents are being attacked, and the citizens of a specific city are going to run away, and they're going to be exiled, and they're going to do a migration into a different location. So this gives them motivation, and therefore to our player as well, it will give them motivation for them to learn stuff, specifically related to mathematics and science. Okay, and we'll get there. And so
Yeah.
let's start to build that specific location in that continent. What's the environment of that continent? What's the population of that continent? Is there animals? Are there birds, fishes? What kind of? And we're talking about lists. We're not just talking about. Yeah, we do have plants, and we have birds. No, we have to specify which kind of plants, which kind of birds. We're talking about each specific species, and we have to have a 3D asset of that. We have to build it in 3D, and the behavior of it as well. And so you have the location and the fauna and the flora and everything that needs to go into that. Okay, then the people get in and they start building stuff. How are they going to build it? What type of architecture? What type of language do they have? I mean, even the expressions change. We don't say "Oh my God" inside the game, because inside the game, the citizens of Libertomos are agnostic. Instead, because they're living in surrounded by cliffs, they say something in what we can call a little bit of Latin, something in the terms of "Oh my cliff," something like that, and so we even build the expressions the mannerisms of each inhabitant. And then we go to the specifics of each inhabitant. So each person has a different personality, a different backstory. They have friends and enemies. They have family. They have sons and daughters. They have mothers and fathers, and they have grandparents, and they come from a lineage or not. They are magicians or laborers or engineers or whatever, and so we go to the process of every single aspect of the world, and that's how we make it immersive, and that's what we call world building, because
Yes.
that enables us to we don't need to expand the world. It's not something like, for example, I might be bit how do you say it, controversial here, but imagine like Star Wars. But if they actually cared to build the world from the start, we wouldn't have so many problems as we have today. Star Wars, for example, is an example of a very poorly written world, and it's full of
right?
exactly, it's very inconsistent. Um, and that's something that we want to avoid, because that draws people away from that world. I mean, you watch an inconsistency, okay, fine. You watch 20 and you start going like, okay, I know this isn't real, and I'm getting a bit bored, and I'm getting a bit tired of being here and looking at this, and so I'm going elsewhere. So the thing is, and I think that's the most important of everything I've said regarding to world building, what I want people to really understand, that you make an amazing environment, 3D environment, and you get people in, but you make world building and you get people to stay.
Yes.
I think
That's why
yeah.
I love that you're Ken your studios too, because you definitely are building in terms of like a studio would, right? From every
Yeah.
research you have to do to every character build to storyboarding to, I mean, when you think of it, oh, it's an educational game. It just does not encompass the depth of this immersion that you're bringing. Yeah. I applaud you on that big effort that you're taking from the details, the minute details. It really brings in, kind of terraforming into a whole new perspective.
Yeah, it is a bit different, and it's something that not a lot of people take into consideration. But one of the issues that because I come from doing a lot of projects in gamification, and what we started noticing is that people started losing interest even in gamified applications after just about 2 weeks. Sometimes not even that. Even after a week, it's enough for people to just lose interest, and just becomes a regular platform. Doesn't mean a single bit if it's gamified or not. And we started looking into that, and we started doing a lot of research of what gets people to stay, and that's stories. And there's several types of stories. As Ben Okri would say, you yourself and me, we all live inside our own stories, the stories that we build and the stories that are built around us. And what we're doing here is that we're bringing that into the digital world, and that shouldn't be taken lightly. It's not something that should be forgotten, or just because it's really hard to do doesn't mean that we should neglect it, for sure. Because if people are used to living inside the story and adapting the world, or at least trying to adapt to the narrative that they want, if they can't do that online in the virtual world, that they will lose interest, and that's something that we need to take into consideration.
And I love that you said your only limitation is the amount of time, right? Because this can, as long as you have time, you can build life, which is kind of what you're doing.
Yeah,
Building
it's
life.
true.
Oh, well, Eduardo, this has been amazing. Thank you for taking us into the world that you guys are building at Conde Studios. And what we will do is when we post this interview, of course, we're going to provide all the ways that people can connect with you and continue to play because with the Web 3.0 really coming online, it is still new. It's still, all this technology that's allowing us to have these amazing creations is still new to a lot of people. So just coming in to play with you and learn about what you're doing can open the doors to how immersive this digital world can be. And it's not just in a video game. Everybody tends to think of it as, oh, it's just like our PlayStations or our Wii's or those kind of things. And it's so much more. It really is life being
Yeah, for sure.
being immersed into it. And I love the learning aspect and that you have it based on research with educators and all the elements included in that. So kudos. I'm applauding your efforts 100%. So let me just give you an absolute cheer 100%.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo, so much for spending your time with us today and on Onyx University. And we're all looking into these worlds. This is what we're excited about, is solving the problems that we are faced with today, and really putting in the time, like you said. And just because it's hard does not mean that it's not necessary. I love that. Love that quote from you. Thank you, Eduardo.
Yeah, thank you.
So Aaron is our camera, but he had to go. So
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, hi,
Sorry
Aaron.
about that.
I
I knew that you
just
had to
came in to
skip
see
out.
how you guys were progressing along, so I came in on time.
Yeah, we just finished out. It went real smooth. The only thing that I was a little concerned with is sometimes with connectivity, Eduardo, your vocals went out a little bit, and that might just be bandwidth and what we can do with that.
Right.
So Aaron, when you start to look at it and edit, or what you do on your side, just note that there are some times where we're not able to catch what you're saying.
All right.
But yeah, thank you
if you want, what we can do is, if you want to, sorry, I just got up.
Okay.
You're like, we're out. Go ahead.
But what I can do is, if the sound it's not audible, and for some reason, in terms of editing, it's not possible to make it comprehensible. If you want, I can provide with subtitles, or at least try to explain in writing what I was trying to say, so that it makes sense.
Okay.
All right,
awesome.
I'll let you know. I think we should be able to work it out.
Awesome.
And transcribe it some shape, form, or fashion. Should be fine.
Yeah.
I'll let you know if we're not though.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
And thank you for playing. This is our first time immersed in the metaverse, in this digital space, as we do the interviews instead of, just the heads on Zoom. So we're getting there. I appreciate you playing with us.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience, and I hope to be here a lot more times.
Yes, so we're going to start hosting networking events on campus, and that's a great way to just interact with. We're all educators or somewhat in the field, so it's just a great way to start networking with people. We're just building the community, so stay a part of us, and as we build, connect.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
This is awesome. You have an awesome space here.
Awesome. And Guado, I'm going to reach out to you directly. I know Rose Academy, which is my organization, we're putting together a pilot program for possibly for the fall. I'd definitely like to talk to you about possibility of participating if you like.
All right. Yeah. Let me know anytime you want to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you a message and we can link up and we can talk about the project and what it entails, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Next week, for example, if you want to, my schedule is, I think, apart from 1 or 2 days, it's mostly open. So yeah, let me know.
Okay, I'll send you a message today.
All right, awesome.
All right, awesome, awesome. Wait, let's shake because we can shake. I know that.
We can.
I'm gonna. I'm getting
And we'll
used
see
to
how this
all of these
goes.
little things. Yeah, so we can F3 is shake hands, and I think oops, we got to be close to each other. So
Let me just.
yeah, come over here. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Come here. Okay.
Sorry.
F3.
F3. So F3.
Let's see it.
Oh.
Let's see if you...
All right.
There you go.
managed.
There you
Yes,
go.
awesome.
We're gonna get to become masters
There you go.
of our avatars, right? Sooner or later, we'll be able to move as we are, freely in the physical world and the digital world. We're coming along.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. I'm
All right.
gonna bounce out. Thank you guys so very, very much. Thank you, Aaron, for our media.
No problem. No
Thank you.
problem.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.